So there's going to be 5 parts to this architecture final, and we'll go through that here real quick. These are also listed in the Google Classroom post, so you can refer to that as well to make sure you get everything done. And the amount of time that we have, you should have no problem accomplishing all of this. So the first thing we're going to do is complete the slideshow of visuals from midterm to final. I'll show you how to do that. The second thing is to create an architecture board of all pertinent works, and make sure that you do it as outlined in this video. The third thing is to mount, tag, and turn in any 2D prints. So check the table, or if you have prints elsewhere, make sure you get those things mounted and put tags on those and turn those in. Likewise with the 3D prints, check the table, and if you have any works in progress or works that are finished back in the wet space, make sure that you put those on foam board and get those tagged and turned in as well. And then the last thing is to make sure you complete and submit your final blog along with the architecture board and the slideshow. Turn all that in together in Google Classroom. So you'll have to go up to the button to turn in and then add more files as you do that. So let's talk really quick about the slideshow since I have this up. You're going to go up to the little plus and you're going to add a slide to your current slideshow that you turned in for midterm. So when you click that plus, it says click to add title. All you have to do is highlight that and type in midterm to final. After you do that, take the slide and just drag it to the bottom of the order, and that's where I'll know that you have works created from the midterm to the final to assess this. After you fill in all the rest of your works, all you have to do is hit the little plus to add slides and bring your images in. Make sure you drag them in like you did before. Fill the slideshow with as much as you possibly can, and then I'll go in and start to kind of weed those out for the digital presentation that will be shown at the end of the year. We'll have that going during the art show, the Arts Fest, and I'll try to promote that on YouTube. So back to the rest of the final. The second thing is to create an architecture board of all pertinent works. And basically what we're looking at is something like this. This is a former student of mine. This is during his thesis defense down at BGSU, and for his undergrad in architecture. He created a bunch of works, and then you basically organize those works on what are called boards for visuals so that you can discuss them. And that's basically what we're trying to do with the Photoshop document. So this is an example of his setup. He had a really nice model there out in front of some of his boards, and obviously this is much more involved than what we're going to be doing, but I just wanted you to see some visuals of what boards look like. So everybody has this document that we basically put our name on. That should be on your desktop. If you don't have it, just ask for it and I'll email it to you real quick. But it's basically comprised of a background layer and then at least 3 sections. Make sure you have your name and the title, MHS Architecture 2021, and then we're going to add what's called a layer style. And let me walk you through what that looks like. So in Photoshop, these are the different layers that I'm working with. These little eyeballs you can turn on and off, and you can see that I have some images spread out throughout my picture plane. It takes up all of the space, and I have these little rectangles here, and I'm using those rectangles to separate the different images. I also can put on what's called a layer style, which is basically a way to frame some of the images, and I'm going to walk you through that. So this is the type of thing that we're looking for. I'll be printing these things off, and we'll use those for the art show. So to open up your Photoshop document, you can see mine on the desktop here. Just double click it, and it will open up. And I'll cancel out of that tab here. And again, you should have your name on it, MHS Architecture, and then there's a little rectangle underneath it. So we want 3 different sections to this. In order to create more sections, I can take that rectangle and I can drag it right down here into this little plus icon, and it makes another rectangle for me. To move that, you're going to click this tool, the Move tool, and I can drag that down, and I can space these out as equidistant as I possibly can. So here's one section, and I need another 2 sections. So once I place that, I can drag this down into the plus again, and I have a second copy of it that I can then move down a little bit further. If you need more sections or you want to move these around, make sure you just highlight on top of those layers, go to your move tool, and you can move them anywhere you want. And you can have up to, I'd say, 4 or 5 sections. Make sure you have at least 3, but you can add more if you want. So this is all pretty much set up. Make sure that, again, you have your name on it. Click the name layer, go over to the text tool, and highlight where it says name and put your first and last name if you don't have that on there already. So the next thing we need to do is just build up some imagery in here. You can drag images directly into Photoshop, or you can import them. You can do them either way. So if I drag let's say I'm going to use some of these JPEGs, I should be able to just grab those and drag those directly into to Photoshop here, and they'll be placed, and it looks like it sized it for me. In order to shrink this down, I can hold Shift on my keyboard and just drag it down from one of the corners to shrink it down to the size that I want. And before I place it, I try to make it about the size of the area that you're trying to fill. That way it'll have a more pleasing look than just pasting it in there. Once you have it the right size, click the little check mark, and then you can go on to other images and just drag those things in and place them as you will. With this image, it's a little bit tall, so I'm just going to distort it just a touch and stretch it out just to kind of fill that space, because it's basically a picture of a bunch of other boards. If I don't want the distortion, I can click that little icon, drag it back in, and I can hold Shift on my keyboard, and that holds its constraint, or it keeps the pixel ratio the same, so I can shrink it down and place it and then add to it. Again, once you have things where you want them, click the little check mark, and that's where they'll be. If you want to move things around, just make sure that you click on the layer. Like, let's say I want to move this model around, I can click on the layer that has that model image, use my move tool, and move it anywhere I want. So fill up your picture plane like the original example, and make sure things look good to you. So I've got this basically filled up. Now, one last feature that I do want you to add once you get done arranging things is to add some layer styles. So we're going to take a look at this model picture here. On that layer, if I double click off to the side of where it says image 3, a layer style box panel shows up. And what I would suggest doing is using this right here, this stroke effect. So if you click stroke and double click right next to where it says stroke, we can change the color of the stroke. We can make sure that it's positioned outside of our image, and you can turn the size of it up or down. So when I turn the size up, you can see that it's framing my image, and that's obviously a much thicker size than I want, but I can shrink that down a little bit, click OK, and it just looks a little bit more professional if you do add that. So I'm going to go into my next image. I'm going to click on it so that layer is highlighted, double click it, and then go back up to where it says stroke, check it, and it takes the exact same size that I used for this image, and it puts that many pixels of stroke around it. So I'll click OK, and once you have everything filled in and you've added the strokes that you want, or the sizing that you want, you're ready to save this and turn it in. So to save it and turn it in, you're going to go up to File and click Save As, and put your first and last name on the document. Make sure you save it to the desktop, and instead of Photoshop, we're going to save it as either a TIFF, or if you want to save a copy of it, we can save it as a JPEG. So underneath Format, go down to JPEG or TIFF, either or, and click Save. Make sure you do get it to your desktop. If you're on the PC, make sure you move Photoshop over a little bit so that you can see it, and then you'll just basically drag that into Google Classroom when you turn it in. So again, make sure you turn in all those 3 things: the final blog, the architecture board, which is the Photoshop document, and this Google Slideshow in the Google Classroom. Make sure you turn them in there. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask. We have plenty of time to finish all of this. And again, I'll get these prints done and set up the displays, and that will be third trimester. And make sure you're listening for when the STEAM show is.